In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, the Qur'an tells us. And we have certainly sent down the reminder, and indeed we will be its guardian. Chapter 15, verse 9. From the earliest days of Islam, believers knew that the Qur'an would be preserved forever. But what about the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the guidance he gave, the wisdom he spoke, the example he lived by? These words, too, had to be preserved with care, for they explained the Qur'an and showed Muslims how to live it. Among all the guardians of Hadith, one man rose above all others. His name was Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, remembered forever as the compiler of Sahih al-Bukhari, the purest collection of authentic sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. You are watching religious stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which story you would like us to cover next. He was born in the year 1810 in the city of Bukhara, in present-day Uzbekistan. His father, Ismail, was a man of knowledge and honesty, known for his piety. His mother, a woman of faith and wisdom, would play a vital role in shaping his life, but tragedy struck early. Imam al-Bukhari's father passed away when he was still a young child. He grew up without his father's hand to guide him, but his mother raised him with love, devotion, and a deep connection to Allah. As a child, Imam al-Bukhari faced a great test. He lost his eyesight. For a mother, it was heartbreaking. But she never gave up hope. Night after night, she prayed to Allah to heal her son. Then one night, she saw in a dream the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, telling her that Allah had restored her son's sight. She awoke, and the young boy could see again. This miracle would become a sign of the extraordinary journey awaiting him. From an early age, Imam al-Bukhari displayed an astonishing memory. He memorized the Quran quickly, then turned to Hadith. By the age of 10, he was already sitting in the gatherings of scholars in Bukhara, listening carefully, memorizing every word. He would correct teachers when they made mistakes in narration, showing an ability far beyond his years. His sharp mind, paired with his humility and devotion, began to shine. By the age of 16, Imam al-Bukhari had memorized thousands of hadith. He traveled to Mecca with his mother and brother for Hajj. But while many returned home, he stayed behind. He chose the sacred cities of Mecca and Medina as his classrooms, spending years learning from the scholars there. Then his journey widened. He traveled across the Muslim world to Egypt, Syria, Baghdad, Basra, Kufa, and beyond, gathering hadith from more than 1,000 teachers. Every land he visited added to his treasure of knowledge. What made him unique was not only his memory, but also his caution. He knew that many false narrations circulated, mixed with truth. He refused to accept any report unless it met the strictest conditions. The chain of narrators had to be unbroken. Each narrator had to be reliable, and the content had to match what was already known to be true. He once said, "I have memorized 100,000 authentic hadith, and 200,000 that are not authentic." His mission was clear: to separate the pure from the corrupted. By his early 20s, Imam al-Bukhari was already known as a master of hadith. His teachers, who had once guided him, now marveled at his mastery. His fellow students followed him, eager to learn. Yet his journey had only begun, for he would soon embark on the task that would define his life: compiling the most authentic book of hadith ever written. But how would he choose which hadith to include? What conditions would he set? And what spiritual preparation would he make for this monumental task? The answers would shape history. And in the next part of this story, we will see how Imam al-Bukhari, with prayer and devotion, compiled Sahih al-Bukhari, the book that Muslims hold next to the Quran itself in authenticity. Imam al-Bukhari's childhood had already set him apart. His memory was unmatched, his devotion extraordinary. But his true journey was only beginning. The young scholar would now leave his home and travel across the Muslim world, walking thousands of miles, crossing deserts, and enduring hardships, all in pursuit of one thing: the authentic sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which story you would like us to cover next. His first great step was the pilgrimage to Mecca with his mother and brother. After completing the rites of Hajj, his family prepared to return home, but Imam al-Bukhari remained. He had discovered that the sacred cities of Mecca and Medina were not only places of worship, but also centers of learning, filled with scholars who carried precious chains of narration. Here, he absorbed thousands of hadith, each one linked back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, through generations of reliable narrators. But Bukhari was not satisfied with just one city or one group of teachers. He knew that hadith were scattered across lands, guarded in the memories of scholars in distant regions. So he began a journey that would define his life. He traveled to Basra and Kufa, to Damascus and Homs, to Baghdad and Nishapur, to Egypt and beyond. In every city, he sought out the most trustworthy scholars, listening, memorizing, and carefully recording. His devotion to accuracy was legendary. If he heard of a scholar who knew even a single hadith, he would set out to meet him, regardless of distance. Yet Imam al-Bukhari was not naive. He tested every narrator. If a man was known to lie, he rejected him. If a man's memory was weak, he set aside his narrations. There is a story told of Imam al-Bukhari arriving to meet a man who was reported to know hadith. But when he saw the man pretending to lure his horse with an empty bucket, Imam al-Bukhari turned away. If he can deceive an animal, he said, how can I trust him to have preserved the words of the Prophet? His standards were among the strictest in history. He demanded an unbroken chain of narrators, each person known for honesty, reliability, and memory. He would not write a hadith until he was certain of its authenticity. He once declared, I have memorized 100,000 authentic hadith and 200,000 that are not authentic. His life's mission was to separate truth from falsehood, purity from corruption. In Baghdad, Imam al-Bukhari's reputation was tested. A group of scholars decided to challenge him. They mixed the chains of 100 hadith, reciting them incorrectly in his presence. Imam al-Bukhari listened silently, then recited each one back, correcting every chain, restoring them to their true form. The scholars were astonished. Word spread quickly. There was no memory like his, no scholar as precise. But Imam al-Bukhari's journey was not only about memorization. It was about worship. Before writing down any hadith, he would pray 2 units of prayer, seeking Allah's guidance. He purified his heart so that his pen would not betray his duty. For him, collecting hadith was not an academic exercise. It was an act of devotion. Years turned into decades. Imam al-Bukhari had gathered an ocean of knowledge, and from it he was preparing to distill the purest drops. He would soon compile the book that Muslims hold next to the Qur'an in authority, Sahih al-Bukhari. But how would he select from hundreds of thousands of narrations? What rules would he follow? And how would he ensure that not a single weak hadith entered his collection? The answer lies in the next part of his story, the writing of Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic book after the Qur'an. Imam al-Bukhari had traveled across the Muslim world, gathering narrations from thousands of teachers. His memory was unmatched, his devotion unequaled. But now came the task that would define his life, compiling a book of hadith so pure, so authentic, that no falsehood could touch it. This was the birth of Sahih al-Bukhari. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which story you would like us to cover next. Imam al-Bukhari understood the weight of his mission. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had said, "Whoever intentionally lies about me, let him take his seat in the fire." The words of the Prophet were sacred. They were guidance for the world, second only to the Qur'an itself. To record them wrongly was a sin beyond measure. To preserve them rightly was an act of worship that would last until the end of time. And so Imam al-Bukhari set conditions stricter than any before him. For a hadith to enter his book, the chain of narrators had to be unbroken, each narrator known for truthfulness and strong memory. The narrators had to have lived at the same time and actually met one another. If there was any doubt, he set it aside. Out of hundreds of thousands of hadith he memorized, only around 7,000 passed his test. His devotion was spiritual as much as it was scholarly. Before recording a single hadith, Imam al-Bukhari would perform ablution, pray 2 units of prayer, and ask Allah for guidance. He wanted his heart to be pure before his pen touched the page. It is said that while compiling his book, he would sleep little, worship often, and devote his nights to prayer and remembrance of Allah. The writing of Sahih al-Bukhari was not done in haste. It took him 16 years of careful work, reviewing, cross-checking, and verifying. He traveled again and again to confirm narrations. He wrote, revised, and rechecked until he was certain. What he left behind was a book that would be accepted by the entire Muslim world as the most authentic collection of hadith. The scholars of his time recognized his achievement. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, one of the greatest jurists, praised him. His students spread his teachings across lands. His name became synonymous with truth and precision. But Imam al-Bukhari himself remained humble. He never claimed perfection. He saw himself only as a servant of Allah, chosen for this task. His book was not written for fame or fortune, but for worship, to preserve the legacy of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for generations to come. Yet his life was not free of hardship. Jealous rivals spread rumors against him. Some rulers feared his influence. In his final years, he was forced into exile, leaving his beloved Bukhara behind. But even in this, he was patient. He carried no bitterness, for he knew his true reward was with Allah. The book remained. Sahih al-Bukhari spread across the Muslim world, studied in mosques and schools, memorized by scholars, cherished by believers. To this day, more than 1,000 years later, it is read and respected as the purest record of the Prophet's words, second only to the Qur'an. But who was Imam al-Bukhari the man? Beyond his scholarship, how did he live? How did he worship? And how did he meet his final days? In the next part of the story, we will uncover his humility, his devotion, and the legacy he left behind, a legacy that still shapes the Muslim world today. Imam al-Bukhari's book was complete. Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic collection of hadith, revered by Muslims across the world. But behind the pages of his book was a man of deep humility, unshakable piety, and incredible patience. His legacy is not only in what he wrote, but in how he lived. You are watching Religious Stories. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which story you would like us to cover next. Imam al-Bukhari never chased wealth or power. Despite his fame, he lived simply, often in poverty. He gave much of what he earned to charity, keeping little for himself. When asked why he never sought riches, he replied, "I do not know if what I own is truly mine, or if it is just a trust that will return to Allah." His humility was as legendary as his knowledge. He was also a man of worship. His nights were filled with prayer and tears, his days with fasting and study. It is said that he prayed every night, dividing his time between sleep, writing, and worship. His devotion gave life to his knowledge, reminding his students that scholarship without sincerity is empty. But his path was not free of trials. Jealousy followed him. Some scholars envied his fame and spread rumors. Even some rulers feared his influence and plotted against him. Toward the end of his life, he was forced to leave his beloved city of Bukhara. Exiled and weary, he remained patient, knowing his true home was with Allah. In the year 870, at the age of 62, Imam al-Bukhari passed away in the town of Kartank, near Samarkand. Before his death, he raised his hands in prayer. "O Allah, the earth has become narrow for me despite its vastness, so take me back to you." That very night, his soul returned to his Lord. He was buried quietly, but the fragrance of his legacy spread across the world. His book, Sahih al-Bukhari, lived on. Scholars memorized it, taught it, and passed it down. To this day, more than 1,000 years later, it remains a pillar of Islamic scholarship. Every hadith within it is treated with the utmost respect, second only to the Qur'an. When Muslims say authentic, they often say Bukhari. His name has become a symbol of truth. The lessons of Imam al-Bukhari's life are clear. He teaches us that sincerity matters more than fame, that knowledge must be guarded with worship, that truth must be protected, no matter how much effort it requires, and that Allah blesses those who devote themselves fully to his cause. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "When a person dies, his deeds come to an end, except for 3 ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, or a righteous child who prays for him." Imam al-Bukhari's beneficial knowledge lives on, centuries after his death, guiding millions of Muslims around the world. And so we remember him, not only as a scholar, but as a servant of Allah, a guardian of the Prophet's words, and a man whose sincerity made him eternal in the hearts of believers.